Hello and welcome back to another book review. First of all, if you are new here, I post new book reviews almost every single day on both fiction and nonfiction books. So if that sounds interesting to you, if you like following book reviews, or if you just like getting some reading inspiration, then feel free to stick around. Today I am going to be reviewing The Secret Formula by Fabio Toscano. This book was originally published in Italian, at least I assume it's Italian. It was translated by Arturo Sangalli, so credit to the translator for translating this for me so I can read it in English. The Secret Formula is a book on mathematics. So a little bit of background on me. I received my degree from college in mathematics. I love math. I would not say I am particularly gifted in mathematics, but I think the whole branch of study is very, very interesting, and I got my degree in it, and it has served me well in my professional career. So overall, I love mathematics, and I try to continue to read books on mathematics from my library because I just love it as a subject, and I don't think education has to stop when you leave the formal education system like I have at this point in my life. So The Secret Formula revolves around something that is also a historical incident, and it is something that I originally heard about on, I believe, a BBC podcast. I definitely remember it was a podcast. At the time I was working at a department store. I was still in college, still doing my math degree, and I was packing online orders. It was a part-time job I had to make some money, and we could do whatever we wanted basically as long as we were packing the online orders. So when I wasn't studying, I was listening to things on Spotify, and I listened to a lot of podcasts. So I think it was a BBC podcast, and it talked about this particular event. So when I saw this book in my library, I decided I wanted to read it and refresh myself, even though I was a little familiar with the event. This book is not very long. It is 130 pages, so it was a quick read, and the focus of this book is the coming about of the solution of the cubic equation. So for years, for thousands of years, we have known solutions to problems that are like x squared plus 3x. So things that most of us have learned when we left 8th grade. This is the quadratic equation. We all know this, and we have a solution, a process to solve these equations to figure out what x equals. However, the cubic equation, where we have an x raised to the 3rd power, there was not a general solution to solve these problems. And that is where our story starts. Basically, we have some problems with this unknown x quantity that can be solved, but once we reach x to the 3rd power, it becomes there's no good general solution for solving all of these types of problems. And we're set in, I think it would probably be considered Renaissance Italy, and our main character in this is an individual called Tartaglia. I'm hoping I'm saying his name correctly. And in this era, there were mathematical duels. And I think the mathematical duels were the most interesting part of this book. I think we need to get back to some sort of mathematical duels. Basically, you could challenge someone else, and you could point someone out, say, I'm going to challenge you to a duel, and you would send out a list of like 30 problems that you wanted them to solve, and then they would send you problems for you to solve, and then you would duel. You would solve these problems, and that duel could lead to things like loss of a job or gaining a job or just gaining prestige and recognition for your career as a mathematician. So Tartaglia, I blanked on his name for a second, who is this individual here. He had a beard because, at least I assume it's this individual here. Tartaglia had a beard because he had scarring on his face from a childhood injury during a battle, and he receives a duel summons from a individual claiming to have a solution to cubic equations, which is something that, according to Tartaglia, has not been solved at this point. So he is curious, and he's actually able to devise a way to answer these questions, and he answers the duel. He's also a little bit curious because he knows that the person who challenged him to the duel, in his assessment, didn't have the mathematical faculties to discover this on his own. He's pretty sure that he learned it from someone else, which he did. He claims that he learned it from another mathematician. But back in these days, mathematicians weren't really open about sharing their new discoveries. So even though this would be a massive breakthrough in the field of algebra, no one wanted to share anything because it was like power. If you could hoard your solution, which is what Tartaglia did, if he just kept that solution to himself, then he could duel people, and those people wouldn't be able to solve the cubic equations like he could, and he wouldn't have to reveal his solution, and he could maintain a little bit of power. It was kind of power, it was a secret, it was a bargaining chip. It was it was something that he could have that other people didn't have, that other people wanted. So it made him valuable in society. That's kind of my reading of this. So this mathematical duel occurred, Tartaglia gets the secret, and now everyone else is intrigued, because during this duel, everyone else sees that Tartaglia now also has the ability to solve these cubic equations. And he doesn't share them. He keeps it to himself. He doesn't want anyone else to know it. And this eventually gains the interest of, I think that's also, to pause for a moment, the secret formula. That's where I assume the title of the book comes in. Tartaglia has the secret formula to solving cubic equations that he doesn't want to share. However, this raises the interest of a man named Cardano, who is another individual, kind of like a Renaissance man. He was a little bit of everything, including a gambler, I believe. So he kind of, he did it all. And he was interested in getting that secret out of Tartaglia. So they start a correspondence, a letter exchange, and alternating between attacking the person and just really blatant flattery, in my opinion, he kind of worms his way into getting Tartaglia to visit him. And when Tartaglia is visiting him, he eventually reveals his secret. Although he makes Cardano swear that he will not write it down in any way except for like in code, so that no one else will be able to use this. And he makes him swear because he thinks that that'll keep this knowledge from going out, and Tartaglia will still have the upper hand when it comes to solving this, because Cardano, even though he may know it now, he isn't able to share it. Cardano, though, seems to start working with this solution, or doesn't seem to. He does start working with this formula, and he wants to not just stop where he's at, but he wants to continue on. And so he is doing some more research or looking into privately, also with his disciple. They say disciple in the book, but I'm assuming it's just a follower or a dedicated student. They're doing some work on this formula that Tartaglia has shared with them, and they discover through, I don't exactly remember what means they reach the person, but they discover the individual who had made this discovery originally. So when Tartaglia was invited to the original duel, he received his questions that he was supposed to answer came from someone else who was claiming to be able to solve the the cubic equations. And remember, Tartaglia thought that this individual could not have figured out this solution by himself because he wasn't smart enough, basically. But Cardano, who now Tartaglia has shared his solution for this with, has figured out who taught that original duelist who dueled Tartaglia. I think his name was Fior. Was the duelist, but it comes to find, Cardano comes to find out that this has been discovered twice, and it's been discovered twice in a very close amount of time. I feel like there's been other times where something has been discovered two people have independently discovered something very close together. For example, calculus, where like something has come up naturally, but by two different people. In the case of calculus, I believe it was Newton and Leibniz, who both have kind of independently or more or less independently come to these solutions. And in this case, Tartaglia had come to this solution for the cubic equations that someone else just like a decade or so, I think it was, prior, had also independently come up. But because everyone was so closely guarding their secrets and only sharing it with a few people, Tartaglia genuinely had come up with his own solution to solving these cubic equations. But Cardano no longer feels the need to not be loyal, but he feels like he's not necessarily now revealing Tartaglia's secret. He's revealing the secret of someone who has since passed away, but someone else who discovered this. So he feels like he doesn't have to, he's not violating his oath that he took, and he reveals the secret, which results in Tartaglia being basically very, very upset. But basically that is how the secret got out, and how this secret formula became known to all, and as a result, now we have the solution to the cubic equations. Of course, much has been developed since then, but as a result, we're able to look back at this period of history and see that how this became developed and how this information got out in the world, basically. As I mentioned, this is 130 pages, so it's not very long. I will say it maybe reads a little bit more on the academic side. The author does mention or reference a lot of I don't want to say first person. I'm blanking on the word, but like primary source, I think that's the word I'm looking for. Primary source information that has since been translated, of course, into English, but the author doesn't rely on you having a very strong mathematical knowledge. I think anyone who passed high school mathematics would be able to read this book and enjoy it. Now, I received my degree in mathematics, but just because I can do math doesn't mean I'm very good at explaining math. I don't think I'm actually very good at explaining math, so I'm going to put a video in the description, which is a video I found online, which explains the cubic equation much better than I could ever possibly hope to explain it. So I would recommend, if you're not familiar with the cubic equation, or like me, you just kind of wanted a refresher before you went into this, I would watch that video and not listen to anything I have to say about it, because again, I can do math, I can't explain math. Those are, in my opinion, two different skills. So there you have it, the secret formula. If you're interested in history or if you're interested in math, I would recommend this book. It's quite short, 130 pages, but it's full of information and quite an interesting read about this unique time in history. And I do recommend it. I think it was interesting, and I think anyone interested in the topics of history or math would also find this interesting. If you've read this book, have any thoughts or comments on it, or have anything else that you'd like to recommend I read and review, please put it in the comments below. I'd love to receive it. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest